Stationary steam engines. They're not just for Brits anymore. On this episode of Toy Train Tips and Tricks.
Wouldn't it be cool to be able to build and operate your own steam engine? I mean, not like this electric motor that looks like a steam locomotive. What if you could build a real live fire-lighting, water-guzzling, steam-producing, spinning, spitting steam engine of your own? Well, that's what we're going to try to do with the help of this kit by StirlingKit. Now, StirlingKit makes a whole line of different models. This is the rather basic model. This one is called the Rocking Whale, and incidentally, that would be what a lot of people would describe my dance style as. But in any case, this is a real live light the fire, heat the water, create the steam, and watch the motion happen steam engine. Now, this is a hobby that seems to be quite popular over in the UK, hasn't quite caught on here in the US of A, but maybe things like this will help solve that. So follow along while I build this and see what the pros and cons of this StirlingKit model are. In the name of full disclosure, this kit was provided by StirlingKit for the purposes of this review. However, they have no editorial control over the content of the video whatsoever. Whether I like it, don't like it, or somewhere in between, that has no bearing whatsoever on the content of this video. So let's see what we've got. So here is the kit, and let's open it up and take a look at what we got. Now, I did cheat. I looked ahead in the manual because never having built one of these before, I wanted to make sure that I had all the supplies ready to go. And while there are tools included, there are some supplies you will need, including lubricating oil, which StirlingKit recommends 0W30 motor oil. This ought to last a very long time. We also need some thread lock medium strength. That's the blue stuff, no problem. And then there's the steam cylinder oil. Now, again, I mentioned this is a pretty common hobby in the UK, so I imagine that there are hobby shops all over that have steam cylinder oil there, but not so much in the USA. So as I checked Amazon, most of the suppliers were from the UK, and it was going to take quite a while to ship across the pond, but I did find one shop in California that had it in stock and ordered from them. And I'm going to include the link to AccuCraft trains in the video description, as that's where this came from. With that, let's open up the rest of this and see what we've got. We've got a base plate. We have lots of brass parts. Okay, that's cool. That looks like fun. All right. We have several bags of parts that are numbered. I'm assuming that they will correspond to different steps in the instructions, so I want to keep that. That looks like a smokestack. There is the outer covering, or the boiler. What else is in here? Oh, yes, a pressure gauge. That's very, very important. Okay, some more small parts here. We have a flywheel. Okay, these smaller parts I'm going to leave here in the foam until I need them. Oh yes, and there looks like the safety valve. Again, very important, so that if the pressure builds up too much, it releases through the pressure release valve. Lots and lots of little hardware, again in numbered bags, and tools. The tools we are going to need, and some spare parts. Okay. And I bet there's some more parts in here. I pull this foam out. This is our burner tray for our fuel. And I think that's the boiler. Yes, the boiler itself. This is the important piece. All right, and we've got, looks like sight glass will be there. All right, so there we go. And at the end of step one, we have a crankshaft. So far, so good. Okay, and this is the first step where I needed a tool that wasn't included. You do need a set of calipers because it is very important to get the length of the whole piston assembly here, piston and crosshead, exactly the right length at 40.5 millimeters. Step 2 is complete, and now we have a piston. Step 3 complete. We have the piston, we have the cylinder. All right, we are making progress. Step 7, 8, and 9 went very smoothly. That's just assembling and attaching the exhaust and intake manifolds. And now this part of the assembly is pretty much done. And speaking of ridiculously small hardware, the 4 Phillips screws that attach the nameplate, these have got to be the smallest Phillips screws ever. I was able to get one in, and the others have vanished after several attempts. So I'm probably just going to end up gluing it the rest of the way in place. I have no idea where these screws went. Even using my magnifier and tweezers to try to get them in, they would go pop and fly off, and I have no idea where they've gone. But the main part of the steam engine, the main mechanism here, is finished, except for mounting the flywheel, which I'm going to need that small nut for. Hey, there's one of those screws right over here. Okay, good news, bad news time. As I'm moving on to the boiler, I think I'm just getting tired, as a lot of these screws, as I'm trying to reach into tight places, things are flying all over the room, and so I'm going to walk away. The good news is, while searching for another screw that went flying off, I did find my missing piece for the flywheel. There it is, right there. So I will be able to attach the flywheel, and that will finish that off. But hopefully I have enough in the spare parts bin to finish assembling the boiler from screws that I'm having to reach down into deep places, and then they're flying off of the tweezers and bouncing around and going all over the place. So I think I'm just tired. I'm going to stop here and walk away and come back refreshed for the next session. And now we are all the way through step 13. We have a boiler, and now it's a matter of hooking up the piping to there, and attaching it to the base. I feel like celebrating. Step 14.4, these 2 hinges, 8 screws, and this flap, that's an hour and a half of work. Oh my goodness. So now the assembly is completed. I must say this has been a greater struggle than I was expecting it to be. Looking at the directions, I was expecting 2, maybe 3 evenings. It has been 9. But in defense of the kit, most of that delay is related to me being an old man with really bad eyes and really bad hands as far as arthritis and tendonitis. So, sometimes it took me up to an hour to get a single screw in, which is ridiculous. Now, I did have my teenage son was able to help me on a couple of the steps, which helped things along even better. So we are assembled, and now we are getting ready to do our boiler test and get everything ready to fire it up and go. So we're going to see what the directions have to say as far as making sure everything is good and tight and ready to go, and we'll follow along. All right, so it says the first step is, for each run, I need to add about 4 milliliters of the steam oil to the oil cup here. So I'm going to take the lid off here, and I have these little pipettes. Grab a towel. Okay, so that is, about 2. I won't hold that much. There it goes down into the cup, and 2 more. All right. I'm going to put our lid back on here. Then all of our moving parts get treated with our regular machine oil, which, again, they recommended the 0W30 motor oil, and rather than handle it that way, I got these needle point bottles from Hobby Lobby, and actually I've already done it, but gone down, and all of the moving parts in here get a good coat of oil, which, like I said, I've already done, so I'm not going to do it again. And you can see how everything here is turning freely. So that part is finished. Okay, so the next step is to add water to the boiler. So I'm going to turn it this way so I can check the level in the sight glass. Then we unscrew our pressure relief valve here. And I'm going to use some distilled water. Filtered water would probably still work, but distilled water Here, our tap water in Ohio is quite full of all kinds of limestone and other things that would gum up. So we're going to fill it up. This will also help me see if I've got any leaks. Okay, note to self, get a funnel, something small enough to do this. This takes a lot more water than you think it does, and filling it with these pipettes is taking forever. Now, when this thing is in operation, water goes just about everywhere, so I'm putting it on this tray to contain the mess here on the workbench. And now it says to add 20 to 30 milliliters of our alcohol fuel to the burner. So I'm probably going to end up getting a syringe for that. For right now, to make the measurement good, I'm using the pipettes. This is going to take a while. It's going to take about 10 of these, and I've got my alcohol fuel. Make sure it's the good stuff. You don't want to use like 50% isopropyl. You want to use actual alcohol fuel, this denatured alcohol for this. The cleaner the burn, the longer your engine is going to last. This is loaded. I am ready to fire it up. I'm going to turn the light off because alcohol burns so clean that you're not going to see it on camera unless I turn off some of these lights. Let's see what we got. Okay, I can see a little blue flame. And is there any heat there? I can't tell. Let me try that again. I saw a little blue flame there. Okay, I can see the flame. It's spreading. It's spreading. Okay. That's going to be good. Let's slide the tray in place. Good. Close. Now make sure our throttle here is closed, and let's watch the pressure valve. When it gets up to about 2 bars there, then we should have enough pressure to begin operation. All right, the pressure gauge reads just over 2 bars, so it's the moment of truth. Let's open up the valve and see what happens. Oh, I've got water. There it goes. Well, let's crank it back down and build the pressure back up. At least I know it works, but it looks like I need to, tighten up that seal a little bit. But it did run for a minute, though, didn't it? All right, we still have plenty of water in the boiler. I don't know how much alcohol we still have left to burn. It's still hot. Let's try again. There we go. As it says, the more it runs, the more it will break in and get smoother. But I'm pretty happy with that so far. That's not bad at all. And they say during the break-in period, you don't want to turn it up too high. And of course, the higher you turn it up, the quicker it's going to bleed down the boiler. And we don't have that much pressure left in the boiler right now, so I'm going to turn it back down and let it go again. Cool. So as the engine was cooling down for my last attempt, I was able to take some closer look, and I did find a couple more leaks. Most significantly, there was a huge leak right here. I was amazed that the boiler was even able to maintain pressure with such a huge gap here. So that's tightened down. Some others are tightened down. So we should hold pressure much better this time and better operation. So let's light this thing. Okay, I feel the heat. I do not see anything.
Yeah, I don't even see a blue flame or anything, but I can feel the heat coming off. So I must assume we are lit. So let's slide the tray in, close it up. This is turned off, so we should start building up boiler pressure. Now, while we are waiting for the pressure to build up, let's go through exactly what's happening here in the steam engine. Obviously, we've got the water in the boiler. The fuel burns, heats up the water in the boiler, kind of like a teapot. Once the pressure is enough, we release it here. The steam then passes through here. Now it goes through the smokestack. Ooh, yeah, it's already warm. It goes through the smokestack. Now this is kind of a poor man's superheater, in that we're taking the steam and, even if only just for a brief second, we're adding more heat to it to make it that much more efficient. This is the principle that would be used in modern steam engines with a superheater, but it would be more than a simple one pipe pass through the exhaust. It's more complicated than that. But anyway, so now we have our heated steam. It goes over here. We've got our oil tank. So the pressurized steam comes here, mixes in with the oil, and then comes in here to our cylinder. This way, the inside of the cylinder, where our piston and reverser are, stay lubricated. We can't reach them from the outside, so this is how they are lubricated from the inside. So that inside part of the chamber stays lubricated, and then, of course, the exhaust comes out, and this is going to be a mixture of steam and some oil. Then our mechanisms here is our main piston, which is going to, with the steam pressure in here, is going to be pushed up and down, which through the gears down here is going to rotate our crankshaft. And this is our reversing mechanism. I think, now I'm not super up on my steam technology, but I think this is a version of what would be called a Walschaerts valve gear. And it does two things. By changing the position of this up here inside the cylinder, you can not only change the direction of the crankshaft, but you can, on a larger locomotive, a larger engine, you can increase and decrease the amount of steam that comes through on each stroke. So that when you're running at high speed, you would want to shorten the stroke, keeping more of the pressure in the boiler. When you need more power, you open it up so you get more steam per stroke to give you more power. Now, obviously, on a mechanism as small as this, it's not going to make that much difference either way, but that is the principle that is involved. So as long as you keep the steam oil in and run it each time, keep these parts lubricated, and check after every run for loose screws, loose bolts, things that with expansion and contraction might come loose, this thing should run forever. Now, the one messy part, the exhaust here with the steam and water going everywhere, I may choose to modify that, add another pipe, maybe to push the exhaust and that oil and water gunk back here somewhere to collect it. But for right now, just keep a towel on it and it'll be fine. There also is a way you can expand. This is the flywheel with only a single cylinder on only a single piston. It would be possible to get stuck at the top or bottom of the stroke. The flywheel here gives the momentum to continue it until you receive power again. Now, there is room on the other side, conceivably, to add a pulley, maybe to do some mechanical work, maybe attach a small DC generator to it. And I don't know, maybe you could charge your cell phone with it. But that possibility is there. You've got the other end of the crankshaft here and plenty of holes to mount something with. So other than that, we are just waiting for the pressure to build, and we are going to give it another run. All right, we're at 2.5, approaching 3 bar, which in the world of imperial measurements would be, off the top of my head, 40, 45-ish PSI. So we should be in good shape. I don't hear any of the telltale hissing and bubbling that I heard before when I had leaking here. So let's go ahead and open her up. Oh, come on. There we go, a little more pressure. There we go. Now, like I said, one thing that I would like to modify on this is this exhaust blowing all this gunk back this way. But, yeah, that's the joy of steam, right? Let's slow it down a little bit. There we go. And at this point, pressure is building faster than I'm using it up here at this slow speed. So it would go like this pretty much until it runs out of fuel, which should be 20 or 25 minutes or so for a run like that. So you can see how the mechanism is, as it's breaking in, it's getting smoother and smoother and quieter, and we can really crank this down. And it's still running, and we are back over 2 bars. Let's see how slow I can get it. That's about as slow as I can go at this pressure, because I've almost got the pressure gauge turned off. And we've built back up. We are almost to 3 bars again. So let's have some fun. Let's crank it up and see what happens.
So what's my final impression of the StrilingKit Rocking Whale steam engine kit? Well, on the positive sides, it looks sharp, whether it's running or not. The brass, the copper, it just looks really cool. It is very well machined. All of the screws fit exactly the way they are supposed to. The clearances are surprisingly tight for such a small steam engine. Third of all, it works very well and very easy. You make sure everything's lubricated, fill up the water, light the fire, let it build up pressure, and it goes. So all of the things that you want to be positives are definitely positives on this kit. There are a few negatives that I came across, and mainly it's because of me. As an older fellow with trifocal eyes, with arthritis and tendonitis in the hands, many of the really, really small parts were not only really difficult to see, but handling them limited my progress. I don't anticipate most folks will have that problem. As a matter of fact, the last 2 nights, my teenage son helped with the construction, and it went much faster because he could see the parts, he could touch the parts, and he could move his fingers what needed to be done. So if you are in relatively good health and eyesight, 2 to 3 evenings, and you shouldn't have too much trouble. As far as the bags of parts, they are more or less in a chronological order, but they do not necessarily correspond to the step numbers. So overall, I would definitely recommend this kit for somebody who is interested in getting into stationary steam engines. Again, this is the basic model. So what would you use it for? Well, other than the fact that when it's running, it looks really, really cool. Or like I said, even when it's sitting on a shelf, I don't want to pick it up because it's still warm from the last time I ran it. I could certainly see this as a teaching tool. Thinking of science classes, thinking of thermodynamics, thinking of mechanics. Lots of lessons that you can use with the steam engine. Certainly in a history class, if we're talking about the Industrial Revolution, how things like this, these little machines, changed the world just like AI is changing things today. So overall, absolutely, the StrirlingKit Rocking Whale is definitely worth the assembly. So I'm going to have some fun and run it a few more times here. And then I'll get back to the layout and get the trains running. So we'll catch you next time with more toy train tips and tricks.